Wedding planner, what was your best the bride must never know moment? Not a wedding planner, but the wedding planner for one of my friend's wedding went above and beyond. Friend's mother was a horrid woman, very self-centered, narcissistic, the way you feel about Umbridge the first minute into the Harry Potter movie. You feel that way in 2 seconds meeting her. She was banned by friend and uninvited a week before the big day. The final straw being her mother was going to wear a wedding dress. Not a white dress, which is bad enough. No, actual wedding gown to her daughter's wedding. It was a hell of a week doing everything we could all do to help friend and her soon-to-be husband relax, enjoy, and get that witch out of their heads. Day of wedding, it's beautiful. In a beautiful church, everything is fantastic. The wedding planner, he was like some magical fairy godfather, just guiding and leading and managing one transition into another flawlessly. If there were hiccups, nobody knew or saw it. He even had set up professional childcare in the church's children's room for those there with young ones. The vow ceremony flowed into the reception room. Then the horrid beast showed up, stomping up the hallway, wearing that dress looking like tore-up Colfax hooker. She didn't even make it to the reception hallway. The wedding planner jumped her like a Secret Service agent. I don't even know where he came out of. One moment, crazy lady. Next, wedding planner, silent ninja strike. Hand over her mouth and dragged her out so fast that us maids and the groomsmen didn't have time to even gasp. Bride and groom never found out she got in. They think she was arrested in the church's lot. She probably shouldn't have done what she did, having out-of-state warrants out for her. And they didn't find out even that much till after their month-long honeymoon, which was probably due to even the rest of Friend's family wanting nothing to do with their mother. All of us have continued to recommend him for use as business for own events back in CO since then. He looked bat-crap crazy in the eyes, took it on like a badass, and then went about the rest of the day like a pro-Disney cast member. Next story. At my best friend's wedding, we were a little delayed getting introduced to the reception. She thinks it's because they were letting people get seated. Really, her father-in-law was running around setting up their cupcakes because the catering company had to fire an employee on the spot for being high. I don't know what drug. She still has no idea 2 years later. Next story. Bride here. At my wedding, my maid of honor was responsible for holding my husband's wedding ring until we exchanged them in the ceremony, and the best man was holding mine. I was super distracted, goofing around with my dad, getting ready to walk up the aisle, and didn't think to double check with maid of honor before we got the show on the road. During the ceremony, I'm definitely paying all my attention on my husband and my grandfather, who was officiating the ceremony, and not on my maid of honor or bridesmaids, so I didn't even notice when my husband's aunt popped up behind me and slipped the ring to my maid of honor. Maid of honor played it off really well, and I had no clue she'd forgotten the ring in the room we used to get dressed and ready. Nobody said a word, and would have gotten away with me never knowing had my aunt not been recording the ceremony for me. I noticed about a week later when my aunt posted the video to Facebook that his aunt popped up on the pulpit with everyone. I asked my sister, a bridesmaid, what happened, and she lost it laughing. My poor maid of honor felt horrible she'd forgotten about the ring. But my husband's aunt saved the day when my sister and maid of honor managed to wordlessly communicate what had happened, and she found the ring and got it to us in like 20 seconds. Next story. Former wedding planner here. I managed a 5-star hotel's event department, and we had high-end clients that would spend up to and far over a minimum of $150,000 for a single day at our property. Even under the most detailed-oriented people, things fall through the cracks. The reality is that most brides on the day are somewhat distracted. A lot of issues that would be gargantuan the day before come across as trivial. Unless it's vital to something the bride will see or hear, don't say a effing word. She doesn't need to know that the name cards at table 15 are wrong. Yeah, so I agree with this. I have 4 sisters, 2 of them married, and they both told me when they got married that they basically had tunnel vision, and all the drama and like things going on outside of the wedding are kind of like on the, on the back burner. They have no idea. So it's like, why are we as wedding guests or part of the wedding party worrying about it when ultimately 2 people are getting married and that just needs to stay as the sole focus, right? Next story. Obligatory, not a wedding planner story. When my wife and I got married, we chose a deep winter date. We had a friend make up all the buttonholes and bouquets and pick them up the day before the wedding, as we were getting married in another town. My wife's bouquet was quite large and was in a bucket of water to keep it fresh. We stayed, in separate rooms obviously, in a small hotel in the town, and I left the flowers in the car to ensure they stayed as fresh as possible. Unbeknownst to me at the time, that night was going to be the coldest of the year and plummet to about negative 12 degrees Celsius. The following morning, my wife had to get up early with her party and already gone to the venue to get ready. I got up and got ready, then headed out to the car to drop the necessary flowers off with my father-in-law at the wedding venue before heading to the church. Got to the car. The bucket with her bouquet had frozen solid. I headed up to the venue and got her dad out. Like a champ, he took over and got the wedding planner to find every hairdryer in the place to melt the ice so the bouquet could be used. I left him to it, and when my wife turned up at the church, she looked amazing and was carrying an ice-free, wonderful bouquet. She had no idea there were any problems at all. Next story. I wish there were things my wedding planner had kept from me. Instead, she heavily sampled the mixed drinks for the reception pre-wedding and called my mother out for payment while we were taking family photos. But my mom's wedding planner hid the fact I dropped the top tier of her wedding cake when she and my dad got hitched. I was 7 and they thought me carrying it was a good idea. Next story. Not a wedding planner, but my best friend and his now ex-wife had gotten married in January after only being engaged for 3 months. He asked me to be the best man for the wedding. I said totally, that when the wedding was planned for May, not January. I had a week-long training for work in Florida the same week as they moved the wedding to. I wasn't sure I'd be able to move flights around and had to pay a $200 change flight fee, but got things worked out. Yet, in the midst of trying to figure out plane tickets and travel plans, I had gotten bumped at groomsmen, which I was and still am chill with. So, the Friday before the Saturday wedding, I'm supposed to fly from Florida to Texas to Nashville to Chicago, and a friend was going to meet me and drive me to a small town about 4.5 hours south of Chicago. All told, 3 flights and a long car ride, but I should be there by the morning of the wedding. So the Friday afternoon of these travel plans come. I'm ready to leave, and the tux has been picked up, and I'm on my way to my first flight from Florida to Texas, but on the way to the airport, I get a message telling me the flight would be delayed. No big deal. I had an hour-and-a-half layover and just my carry-on. I'd be fine. About 20 minutes later, they message me again, this time to let me know the flight was going to be delayed for much longer. I call my buddy and let him know. He says, no worries, just do your best to get here. So I find a travel agent. They tell me the flight I'm on is still heading over to Nashville, but my connection to Chicago will have left and they'd be willing to rebook me. So I find the earliest flight I can from Nashville. It isn't until 6:30 a.m. the next morning. So I fly to Texas, on to Nashville, stay the night. The next morning, my flight is Chicago, then St. Louis, where my dad will meet me and whisk me to the church. The tux would be waiting there, and I'd be able to get dressed and go right into photos. That night in Nashville, I didn't sleep at all. The next morning, jumped on my flight for Chicago. Had a short layover, things seemed to be going well. I was going to make it on time. But then, over the loudspeaker, I hear, "Flight blank for St. Louis has been canceled due to plane malfunction." At this point, I'm just about to give up when the ticket agent says another flight that's about to leave is open. I grab my bag and rush to the gate, get in line, and luckily it seems I'll be in the air on my way with a couple hours to spare. But we get stuck in taxi for over an hour. When the plane finally takes off, we're getting off the ground right when we're meant to be touching down in St. Louis. It's a short flight, I think 45 minutes, but I lost a ton of time. I meet my dad in baggage claim and we race to the church. It's a 2.5-hour drive. We're leaving at 1 p.m. for a 3:30 p.m. wedding start time. I make it to the church at 3:15 p.m. I dress quickly, meet my bridesmaid, and walk down the aisle. Stay up until 1:30 a.m. Tell the bride, sorry, I almost didn't make it. And she asks, what do you mean? The whole time I'd been telling my friend what had been going on, he never told his wife. She never knew how close I was to not making it, and I think it was totally the right call. TLDR, planes are not the best way to plan to make it to a wedding, but never tell the bride. So this story reminds me of a show called The Amazing Race on CBS. You guys may or may not be familiar with it, but just like booking flights, getting travel agents, and trying to get like the fastest possible connections to get to your destination. It was like OP here is literally trying to win the Amazing Race. Next story. At my stepsister's wedding, her grandfather had a mild stroke right in the middle of the vows. He's pretty loud and a touch belligerent anyways, but it became much more obvious something wasn't right as we were having the formal photos done. With barely a word, the wedding planner booked a taxi for my parents to take him to the hospital nearby to have him checked over quickly, promising to keep an eye on us kids. It came to light that it was a little more serious than they thought, and that they wanted him to be admitted to the hospital near where we lived, a 4-hour drive away. Cue him phoning about 10 car rental places, the Saturday before Christmas no less, to have a car delivered to them at the hospital so they could leave immediately, whilst speaking to the hotel to have their bags packed up. He then delivered them to us and waited for us to finish dinner and toast the happy couple before driving us to the train station himself and booking us train tickets back home, even slipping us a tenner from his own pocket for the taxi to our house at the other end. The whole time he was keeping up to date with my parents so he could update my stepsister from worrying too much. I can only imagine how out of her mind with worry she would have been without him telling her he was okay. Gramps ended up being just fine, and even jokes that it was the only way of getting out of giving a speech. The whole situation was dealt with such professionalism and care, and made what could have been a nightmare so much less stressful that he went on to plan several other family and friends' weddings on the back of that story alone. Next story. The girls in the family have made it a tradition to wear my mom's wedding dress for their weddings. It's a beautiful mid-1960s dress with tons of pearls and lace and things, and a crazy long train. It had been in a cedar chest for about 15 years since its last use and needed to be restored. Due to last-minute errors, my niece was to pick it up the morning before the wedding. As a gift to her, I paid for the restoration and the restitching and sizing, whatever it's all called. She let me go with her to see it sized and fitted, and it's one of my favorite memories. I love that girl so much. I had concerns about how flippant and lackadaisical the dressmaker had been during the whole evolution. Way too many no problems, and of course, and don't worry, to make me feel like she knew what she was really doing. She finished 2 days early. Sweet. I called her and paid, then asked her to hang on to it since I wanted it in safekeeping, not in my car or house. I got there the next day, the day before the wedding, and she didn't have it. She made a mistake and shipped it to St. Louis from Richmond, Virginia 2 days before. After a few minutes of finding out where it went and calling the recipient, another bride waiting for a dress, I checked Google Maps and got on the road. And then and there, less than 30 hours until the wedding, I called my sister, mother of the bride, and told her what was happening and forbade her from telling my niece. There was a backup wedding dress, so it wasn't a total catastrophe, but tradition is tradition. 26 hours of driving later, the dress was getting unwrapped and my niece was putting it on for the big day. It was perfect and looked amazing on her. Then the group photo of all the other ladies who had worn it was taken. My niece never knew until months after the wedding when the dressmaker called her to apologize for the mix-up. Damn, that daffy dressmaker for doing that. My niece is expecting a baby soon and I'm so stoked. I'll go the extra mile for her too if needed. P.S. I'm an uncle, soon-to-be granduncle. I'm so excited. Also, the dress is group photo since people have asked. So far, it's my mom, both sisters, my nephew's wife, and 2 of my nieces. Also, at the reception, they put out individual photos of the brides on the wedding day to show the evolution of the dress. I can't even look at those photos anymore. They make me cry so fast these days. That old black and white photo of my mom looking all pretty on her wedding day, then my sisters, and so on. So many feelings. I can't even take it. I do worry the dress shouldn't be cut up anymore. It's not that different from the original, but I fear it's becoming Theseus's dress. The train is original though, and I had the dressmaker add a thick silk bottom, so it should last a few more weddings. I hope one day my wife and daughters can wear it if they want to. Next story. Groom here, and my wife definitely knows, but our friend who was supposed to do the legal side, sign our marriage certificate, we had a separate pastor for the ceremony, RSVP'd for him and a girlfriend, but then stopped responding to messages as the wedding got close and didn't show. Yes, he's still alive. Luckily, my groomsmen happened to also be ordained and happily signed our marriage certificate. Also, the cake people decided the best way to hold together our 3-tier cake was through using bendy straws instead of dowel rods as supports in the cake. bendy straws. This wasn't even a small podunk operation. It was a local chain company that many people have used and recommended. The cake slid off and they had already left the venue, so our wonderful catering company and venue staff did their best to put it back together and used extra roses to hide the damage. After the wedding, my wife called the cake company to explain, and the manager was snarky, saying that using bendy straws was normal and part of their policy, and said the best he could do was offer like $50 and a free anniversary cake, which may have been fine, but due to his attitude, was not. Finally, he huffily snarked out, "Ma'am, what do you want me to do?" to my wife over the phone. So since his attitude didn't change, we put in a request to talk to the owner. The next day, the owner calls me and, lo and behold, is very gracious, states that, in fact, no, it isn't their policy to use bendy straws, and offers a full refund as well as reassures us that the issue will be dealt with that huffy franchise manager. I still can't get over that. Bendy straws. It's in the name that they bend. Next story. Not a wedding planner, but friend gets married, maid of honor, not me, forgets to order the bouquet, which is made of silk flowers and is a unique piece, which takes about 2 or 3 weeks to be handcrafted. So the day of the wedding, the maid is searching desperately for the aforementioned piece. Almost mission impossible. She finds it. It was from a canceled wedding that would happen that very day. Next story. I was the bride. When the wedding planner dropped the top 2 tiers of my cake and didn't say anything to me, then had the catering department fix it by putting flowers all over the first tier to hide what happened. My sister-in-law thought I knew because after they dropped it, one of them came upstairs where I was getting ready, and when they went back down, she said, "It's okay, we have to try to fix it." No one ever came to me. The only reason I knew is that after the wedding, she told me they did a nice job fixing it, even if she didn't think it could be fixed. I knew there was something different with the cake, but it looked different, so I was okay with that. After hearing it, I was heated, but all in all, I couldn't even tell. Nice one, planner. Next story. I was a wedding planner professionally for 2 years and stopped, but recently my sister asked that I plan/coordinate her wedding since I had the experience. I hit it off really well with her now husband's brother. We slept together at the after party, and we're both freaking out that my sister and his brother are going to find out. If so, the holiday should be interesting. Side note, is that weird? Is he my brother-in-law, or just my brother-in-law's brother? Yes, that is weird, but, I don't think anyone on Reddit's going to burst your bubble, right? Right? Sarcasm. Next story. One of the bride's guests flipped out in one of those "so when are we getting married" arguments with her boyfriend at the venue. She left the wedding, went to his parents' home where their daughter was staying, took the daughter out of their grandmother's lap while expounding upon her child's grandparents, flaws the entire time before driving away, presumably in the direction of home on the other side of the state. Eventually, we were able to convince her to stay at a hotel and bring the daughter back to her grandparents the next day. The bride was quite close with the boyfriend of this mad woman and would absolutely have been distraught by these events. I wish I could say the couple separated after this, but as I worked their wedding too, I just chuck it up to the evidently masochistic husband. Ladies, don't pick that battle. If you genuinely have to ask on such selfish and unfair terms, someone else's wedding, and can't wait to fight till you get home, then have other problems that are more important than the wedding you're seeking. Next story. I wasn't a planner, but was a DJ. My partner and I had set up the equipment and done our tests. When the wedding party and guests arrived, we did our final mic checks to make sure everything would be ready for the first dance. When we checked the wireless mic, I noticed there was a lot of static in it, so I asked my partner to walk around the venue while talking into the mic to see if I could get any idea what was going on. I put the microphone into queue and put on a pair of headphones to listen as he walked around. He started by saying, "Test, test, test." Then he would walk by a guy and go, "Testicle, testicle, testicle." Then by a woman and go, "Breast, breast, breast." Pretty soon, he's walking around the banquet hall saying, "Testicle, testicle, breast, testicle, breast, breast." He goes around the entire perimeter of the facility until he gets back to me. When he got back, I told him that there was too much static and we would just need to switch to the wired mic. Once we got things switched over, I decided to work on the wireless a little more, so I turned off the transmitter and just listened to the static from the receiver. After 30 seconds or so, I started to pick out voices and thought to myself, oh crap. I started looking around, and sure enough, there's a videographer talking to his partner, and their mouths match up with the voices I'm hearing. Turns out, his wireless mic was on the same frequency as ours, so my partner possibly caused breast, breast, testicle, testicle to be recorded on this couple's tape of their cherished memories. Next story. I'm sure my mother wished this could have applied to them. When my parents got married, my dad had to call her while she was having her hair done to break the news to her that the demolitions in the building beside the reception venue had gone horribly wrong. They sent some debris towards the venue and right through a wall. My mother burst into tears on the spot. Wedding was saved by my grandparents' next-door neighbors, who went, F it, party at our place, and ordered a crap ton of pizza for everyone. Yes, let a lesson be learned. When things are about to hit the fan, pizza is always the solution. Lots of pizza. Next story. Wedding videographer. One time my drive just crapped out. It was early in my business and I had zero software recovery setups. The bride's final wedding video and only copy of the raw footage was on there, ready to be sent in a final delivery via USB. I was in shambles. The only project file was there, the only copy of the raw footage, the only copy of the final video was there. But I did have an unwatermarked version that I'd uploaded to them as a sneak peek. Thank you, 4K YouTube downloaded. Next story. Bride and groom chose to do a sand combining thing in their ceremony. 2 different colors of sand are poured from separate containers into one container by bride and groom, representing unity, etc. They were going to leave for their honeymoon immediately after the ceremony, and arranged for us to hold on to all their gifts and such, including the sand vase, until they returned. Well, it got knocked over in our house and shattered, and sand went everywhere. We quickly bought all the same stuff from where they gotten it. My mother-in-law was their wedding coordinator, so she knew exactly what to get and where to get it. Looked at photos taken from the ceremony and duplicated the Unity sand as best we could. We never told them that their Unity sand was actually destroyed and redone by us. Anyway, 3 years later, they weren't doing well, and the wife killed the groom and then unalived herself. I guess it was the sand. Just kidding, they're doing great and have 4 kids. Next story. I didn't have a wedding planner, but my whole family kept me from finding out about a huge issue. A quick bit of background. My wedding was a little rough from the start. We were on a shoestring budget, $14K start to finish, including all incidentals in an area where $30K is considered a cheap wedding, and things were not always going well. The photographer didn't commit until a week before the wedding, and on the day of, the bus carrying my husband, stepdaughter, groomsmen, and bridesmaids crashed into the venue. No one was hurt, and my maid of honor is a paramedic. More than half of my guests are nurses, first responders, and paramedics. We recovered. Just before I'm set to walk down the aisle, my dad says to me, just so you know, your grandma was feeling a little sick, so she had to stay home today. She was 94. Made total sense to me. One of my cousins was missing from the wedding, but they said she took my grandma to the doctor. Grandma can't drive. Makes sense. It wasn't until 2 days later when I was in NYC with our out-of-state/out-of-country guests that I see a post from my cousin with a picture of the view from Grandma's hospital room. She'd had a major heart attack the night before my wedding, had surgery the day of or after, can't remember which, and all I was told was, she's feeling a little sick, because no one wanted me sad on my wedding day. Aunts, uncles, cousins were all there to celebrate with me. They all knew. You're talking almost 40 plus people, and they all kept it a secret. Next story. Working at a hotel, the concierge gave away the wrong wedding cake to a couple from the day before. I was sent 60 miles with the day of the wedding to collect a vegan cake in my old VW Polo. Highlights from the day. Lying to the bride and groom that their cake was in a fridge and a chef had gone home with the keys. Driving with yesterday's wedding cake buckled up on my passenger seat. Overtaking a police van on the motorway, only slightly speeding, but not getting pulled over. Airborne over the speed humps in the hotel's mile-long driveway. The big reveal in front of the guests. After driving back with the right cake 2 hours late, we unpacked it without checking first. Blamed the smudged icing on the original delivery as it came from London by car to Scottish countryside. They loved their smudged vegan cake, and had a beautiful wedding. I was gifted a few bottles of wine that I still have. Dozens of weddings, but that was the scariest day in the business. Next story. Almost bride here. Strap in for this one. Friday before my wedding, destination wedding in the Keys, my wedding planner tells my fiancé and I to hand over our phones so that we can enjoy our night and relax before the craziness that would ensue the next day. My fiancé was a little hesitant, but she talked him into it, and I don't think he wanted to look suspicious. You can tell where this is going. We had 2 bottles of champagne, room service for dinner and dessert, and massages. She went all out for us, and it was truly amazing. Still, he didn't look fully relaxed like I was, and I honestly assumed he was just nervous. My bridal party has an early wake-up call since we have more to do than the groom's party, so my maid of honor comes to get me at around 7 a.m. She looks like hell and just tells me I need to hurry to our bridal suite. I thought for sure this is some kind of prank. I don't see any of my bridal party there yet, just my planner and my pregnant best friend, who didn't want to partake, understandably. It looks like a effing intervention, but I knew it had to do with my fiancé. Effing intuition. My planner tells me that there's an issue, and she has a backup plan if I decide to call the wedding off. I'm now hyperventilating almost. Apparently, at some point in the night, fiancé's phone kept going off. She wanted to silence it, but saw messages popping up on the screen. They were not innocent, obviously. She called maid of honor, who then called our other best friend. Maid of honor, being a badass, unlocks his phone. It's literally his birthday, and starts going through his phone, looking for the texts but doesn't find them. Planner insists on what she saw, and they all conclude there must be a hidden app in a folder somewhere. They effing find a Grindr app, and holy crap, my military macho man fiancé is effing gay. He's had men over at our home. He had one guy who was in love with him and wanted to come down to the Keys to see him on our wedding weekend. This was the message my planner saw pop up on his phone. The guy was threatening him because my fiancé wasn't responding. Everything was called off. Some of my gay friends who were in attendance told me they thought he was gay. One even thinks he saw him at a gay club in South Beach but didn't want to instigate anything. Anyway, fiancé was kicked out, but our families were allowed to stay to party because I wasn't going to lose that money. Most of his family left angry at me. He denied everything, so of course his family was supporting him. I know it's not a must-never-know story, but I prefer it that way, or I'd be married to a closeted homosexual. By the way, he still refuses to admit any of it to this day. He tries to manipulate the story or gaslight people about the facts. Next story. Bride was spoiled. Her brother-in-law is a multimillionaire and paid her way through college, where she met her husband, who's also filthy rich. Wedding dress was $10K, and the husband bought her a diamond necklace and earrings worth $50K, and also bought a house that they were furnishing before the wedding. She threw tantrums, screamed, cried during appointments, then would have her sister and mother rush over and get everything done. She was 27. During the wedding, we had set up this tree with tags hanging from the branches, and the guests can write nice words and such. Before I left, I wrote on 3 different tags. Please use contraception and different handwriting on each so she'd gather that multiple people believe she's unfit to have children anytime soon. Next story. On my wedding day, during the reception, a hatchet-wielding gentleman was driving crazy and ended up in a standoff with police just outside the venue. I only realized something was amiss when the incredible DJ offhandedly mentioned that folks leaving would have to turn right and head south out of the parking lot. I don't think the guy died, but he definitely got shot, and every road was shut down around us. But the police knew there was a wedding and kept a path open for us to leave. Next story. The bride pulled me aside during rehearsal to tell me the groom's brother, also the best man, was planning to find a girl on Tinder as his date. She was less than thrilled about all of this, as apparently he doesn't have a great track record. He found someone and my bride was stressing. We made it through the ceremony and cocktail hour without incident. Dinner was going great and we're about to do toasts when I can't find the brother anywhere. Lo and behold, the girl is gone too. I have the DJ stall a bit and recruit some people to go find them. I walk into the bathroom and under a stall I see guys' shoes with a girl squatting down between them. Little craps. So I pretend to be on the phone and say, "Yeah, we're about to do toasts. I just have to find the best man, then I'll be right there." And I heard, "Oh crap," as I walked out and was in giving his toast 5 minutes later. As everyone is out dancing and having a grand old time, one of the resort staff pulls me aside and says there's a situation. I go talk with them and they've also snagged my groom. Come to find out, brother and Tinder girl have been removed from the party because they were found in a less than discreet spot, with his head up her dress going down on her. Groom looks at me and all he says is, "She can't know." So my sweet bride not only didn't find out that brother-in-law was getting head in a bathroom stall 5 minutes before the speech, but she also doesn't know he was kicked out for going down on the class act Tinder girl he found. Thank God for great staff and vendors who are flexible. Next story. Not a wedding planner, didn't have a wedding planner, but was a bride who didn't find out about a mishap until way later. My wedding was phenomenal, beautiful, elegant, and relatively inexpensive. My maid of honor was one of my best friends who flew over to the US from the UK for our second meeting ever. We'd been online friends for about 10 years prior. At one point, about halfway through the reception, I noticed my younger sister was missing, and then, moments later, I noticed one of my friends, a girl she'd had her eye on, was also missing. At that point, I'd already mentioned to my mom that my sister was missing, and I casually said, "Oh, the friend is missing too, huh?" After realizing the implications, I added, like, "Maybe they're in the bathroom." But my mom began hunting them down. My husband and I sat back at our sweetheart table and laughed it off, and that was that. Apparently, my maid of honor found my sister and my friend getting better acquainted in the bridal suite. This was her second or third time meeting either of them, but she yelled at them both to get back down to the wedding, as it was my day and they could screw around on their own time. They came back down looking like they'd just been spoken to by the principal, and I knew something had happened. But it wasn't until 2 years after the wedding that I found out what. She was a spectacular maid of honor and took her job very seriously. Next story. Not a wedding planner, but the day of my friend's wedding, with about half an hour to go, she got an upset stomach from nerves and took it out on the church bathroom. We, the bridesmaids, were mulling around outside the bathroom, and when I walked in to check on her, I was assaulted with the most soul-crushing, eye-watering, nostril-burning stench I'd ever encountered. "Is it bad? Is it bad?" she kept asking, fixing her hair in the mirror while I silently dry-heaved behind her. I insisted that it wasn't, despite the fact that I'm pretty sure what she did was outlawed by the Geneva Convention, and hustled her back into the foyer as quickly as possible. But the ungodly smell lingered so badly that I ended up slapping a homemade, out-of-order, please use a second-floor bathroom sign up for the duration of the wedding, and told her that the janitor had done it because of a leaky pipe. Next story. My sister didn't have a planner, but she's very granola. Everything at her wedding had to be organic, but this was in 2004, in a small, podunk town in Florida where the nearest organic grocery store was 2 hours away. One woman baked her an organic cake, but wasn't comfortable decorating it. She did make buttercream organic icing, and a friend of mine, a cake decorator from Walmart, did the cake assembly. Unfortunately, the buttercream organic icing wasn't enough to cover the full cake. So, my mom and I ran to the local grocery store and bought non-organic ingredients. It's been 15 years since my sister got married, and she still has no clue that her cake is covered in half non-organic icing. Also, the only food served at her wedding was organic strawberries, nuts, and cake. Yeah, that reception only lasted about an hour, especially since it was in a church reception hall that didn't allow dancing either. Next story. Many years ago, I was sitting in my office making some last-minute signage at the country club I used to work at as the wedding cake was being delivered. One of the bridesmaids walked into my office and told me that the baker dropped the cake. I thought she was kidding. I walked into the ballroom and found the cake on the floor all over one of the columns of the room, with the delivery girl in tears. Publix grocery store in Florida makes wonderful wedding cakes, and they were the ones who made and delivered this one. I looked at the girl and told her she had 2.5 hours before the ceremony started to bring me a new cake. It was a simple 3-layer cake that just needed the bride's topper and some simple flowers, which I could add very quickly once the cake was delivered. I swore all of the family and bridesmaids to silence so no one told the bride. Right before the ceremony started, a new cake was delivered. The bride was none the wiser. She even walked past the empty cake table a bunch of times on her way outside to take pictures and didn't even notice. It all worked out. After that, if I ever needed a last-minute cake, I would call Publix and they would always come through. Next story. I used to bake wedding cakes. I had the bottom tier of a cake end up destroyed about an hour before the wedding. I'm a one-man operation, not a bakery spare cake lying around. So I ran to the grocery, bought one of their bakery cakes sans icing, cut it into the right size, and decorated it at lightning speed. Nobody knew. I know someone else who baked wedding cakes who got to the venue on a sweltering day to discover that the heat had caused all the icing to slide off the cake in the back of the car on the trip there. She redecorated the cake on the trunk of her car at the venue, a public park, I think, using spare icing she had on hand and what she could salvage from the slidey off icing. Bride never knew. Next story. Second story. During college, I was a wedding singer. I didn't do receptions, but I sang during the weddings themselves. This was my final wedding because I didn't want to deal with the mother of the bride after this. It was a wedding rehearsal, and the song picked was Can't Help Falling in Love by Elvis Presley for the candle ceremony. That night, the MOB wanted me to change it to Love and not tell the daughter. I told her no because it's not what the accompanist and me practiced. Also, I wouldn't go against the bride. MOB insisted until almost right before the ceremony and was trying to get the pianist to change the music, but the pianist and I were friends and wouldn't do it. This wasn't our first time dealing with people interfering at the wedding, so we decided it wasn't worth the $50 each anymore. Yeah, I don't know when this was, what year, but yeah, $50 to deal with that kind of drama, never worth it, in any economy. Next story. I was the bride. Our wedding night hotel had no record of our booking. I was oblivious anything was wrong until my husband told me later at the reception. He had gone to drop our bags off at the hotel, and that's when he found out. He spent the morning of our wedding day trying to sort it out and was determined for me to not find out until it was all sorted. Luckily, the hotel staff were great and let us stay in a lovely little cabin, which the hotel manager's grandma lived in, on their property. All worked out in the end, and we got to stay in a really modern cabin all to ourselves. It was much nicer than the hotel room we'd booked. Next story. Best man was wasted. We hid all the booze and made him take a cold shower, sobered him up enough, and he didn't fall over during the ceremony. Bride was already a little bridezilla-ish. She was fine, but nobody wanted to ruin her mood and make that the thing she remembered about her wedding. So we all made a pact to not tell her about it at all. Not a wedding planner, just maid of honor. Next story. This actually just happened this past Saturday. Wife was maid of honor in her sister's wedding. We went to a local park for pictures. Took the bride's car as we could fit her, my wife, and my wife's wheelchair comfortably in the back. As we were wrapping up, my wife and I went back to the car to get a head start, getting her back in, and the car as we were running late. Turn the key in the ignition and it snaps off. The plastic fob just falls apart in my hand with the whole centimeter of key sticking out of the ignition. Wife starts laughing hysterically, draws all the attention to us. I'm scrambling to get this thing started, but obviously can't get any leverage to turn it. One of the other groomsmen who's nearby runs to his car and grabs a pair of needle-nose pliers out of his trunk. Effing pliers saved her ass and she has no idea. She left for her honeymoon Sunday night, the day after the wedding, so I've had a few days to get the fob/key replaced. She'll find out after she gets back when I charge her for it. Next story. Wedding party member here. An hour or two before the wedding, I was walking through the bar area and heard the site coordinator say, "What are you doing?" in an angry tone. The best man was behind the bar guzzling one of the bar's bottles of vodka. It was a cash bar, and even if the alcohol had been prepaid, it would have still been disgusting, as that bottle would have been poured for the guests. I'm sure the coordinator would have thrown him out if he wasn't the best man. The bride and groom had been worried about this guy's ability to keep it together. Knowing what had happened would have maxed out their stress levels, so it's my secret. Next story. Didn't have a wedding planner as it was a fairly small wedding, and one of my bridesmaids was great at delegating tasks to the others. Seriously would not have made it without her. Anyway, we're on the trolley between the ceremony and reception, and I notice my bridesmaids and bridesmen are acting strange. I ask what's wrong, and no one wants to tell me. Finally, 5 minutes of me getting pissed go by, and they say the DJ hasn't shown up to the venue, and we're trying to figure out a replacement. What? The DJ is a friend, and we both had his number. All it took was a quick call to him to fix the issue. He was just running a couple minutes behind and would still be there in plenty of time to set up before we arrived. I appreciate that they didn't want us to panic, but when there isn't a wedding planner and most of our hired people are friends, it's probably easier to just let us know. Next story. Florist, so we deal with wedding planners. Many even sitting in on meetings. We need to be there early to set up the weddings. One time we were hired with the bride requiring us to be there around 7 so they could get pictures before the service at 4. They wouldn't let me in until 3:30 or 3 if we paid $30. The driver was confused, and when he told me he couldn't be there for 3 more hours and I showed him the paper, The person who said we couldn't get in for 3 more hours was a janitor hired by the venue, basically was doing nothing except sitting outside. He called the owner of the venue, who said the same thing. We called the wedding planner, who told us to come in. The janitor called the owner, got the same response. The wedding planner called and was put on hold and told everyone to set up quick. When the owner arrived, she was shocked to find everyone set up and a wedding planner said a line built up, and she had to let everyone go so the guests wouldn't see the place empty. We gave the flowers to the wedding planner, who told the bride's mother what happened, but she told for some reason the florist ran late due to traffic. They didn't want to know there was a problem with the janitor and venue. Next story. Obligatory not a wedding planner, but at my cousin's wedding, the guy that was delivering the cake from the bakery dropped it. The cake was still in the box, so it didn't completely destroy the cake, but the cake shifted, and once it was out of the box, it was pretty obvious something had happened to it. The guy from the bakery immediately said, "I'll go inform the bride of this," to which nearly everyone in my family screamed, "No, do not tell the bride!" My aunts ended up fixing the cake the best they could, turned the worst of it into the back, and my cousin never knew until after the wedding when someone told her. Next story. Not a wedding planner, but as a bride, there were things the venue manager insisted on keeping me informed of no matter what point we were at in the reception. His name was Chuck, and no, I didn't change the name to protect the a-hole. First of all, he walks up to me while I'm talking to my new father-in-law and tells me my friends are smoking dope in the garden and I have to go stop them. I pulled them away from my father-in-law and told him he should do what he needs to do, but he shouldn't be bothering me with this nonsense. Next, we're seated for dinner. I'm at the bride's table with my new husband, and we're looking out on our guests, who are seated at round tables of 8 people each. My new father-in-law is giving a toast and dinner is being served by waitstaff. Chuck comes up to my table, leans over it, and gets right in my face. He tells me I need to stop the toast until they're finished serving dinner. I wanted him away from me ASAP, so I just said, "Sure, Chuck," and then I let the waiter who was putting a plate in front of me tell the other waiters to keep serving no matter what. Next, it's time for dancing, but before I can have a first dance with my new husband, Chuck finds me again and tells me my brother-in-law, my sister's husband, has crashed another wedding reception at the venue and has been escorted off the property. Once again, I tell Chuck this sounds like his problem and that he should do what he needs to do. So yeah, I would have been thrilled to have all this bullcrap kept from me on my wedding day, but Chuck decided it was a good idea to tell the bride everything. Later on, I asked some of my friends if they'd seen any problems at my wedding because I wanted to know how much of a scene my dope-smoking guests and my brother-in-law had caused. No one had seen or heard anything. What they did tell me was that the venue failed to provide the vegetarian meals we'd ordered for our vegetarian guests. That I would have liked to have known because I could have gotten it fixed. I wish I could remember Chuck's last name because he would have definitely gotten a glitter bomb or two over the intervening years. Next story. I planned my own wedding. Everything went smooth for the most part. The venue was a boat that would go up and down the South Florida Intercoastal Waterway. Well, upon choosing my bridesmaids, 2 of them declined because one was just a female dog and had a thing for my soon-to-be husband. The other, her sister, was in Gainesville, Florida for college and wouldn't have had the time to make it to the fittings, etc. So I'm down to just my maid of honor. It's fine, whatever. Cut to the night before the wedding, and my maid of honor is supposed to come over with the logical girl who declined being a bridesmaid to help make the flower arrangements for the tables. Both of them stood me up for a night of partying and doing coke instead. So my fiance and I stayed up all night making flower arrangements and wedding favors, etc. Day of the wedding, my fiance leaves our wedding license at home. I have to drive back home after getting my hair done, which took an hour longer than planned, to pick it up and find my grandmother still at the house bickering at me for forgetting to pick her up a pack of cigarettes. At the wedding, the local girl that declined my request to be a bridesmaid didn't even show up, and my fiance's best friend is late. He has jet lag from flying from California and is on California time, so he misses the ceremony, and we have to wait at least an hour to leave the dock for a reception cruise. During the cruise, we're told the PA system is broken from the night before, and halfway through, the engine fails, and the electrical system fails, and the lights go out. Luckily, I have some great friends, so my best guy friend stands in for a bridesmaid, even dressed in a purple blazer to match the accent colors of my dress. Another friend then provided music on a guitar he brought, and my dad is mechanically inclined, so he helped the captain fix the engine. The sister of the girl who didn't show up unattended, the wedding, even though is highly susceptible to seasickness, stayed for the whole cruise even though she was the color of her green dress, and because it was an open bar and my dad provided all the alcoholic beverages, I got to bring home all the booze that was left over. 12 years later, I'm now divorced, and in hindsight, I wish I had married the guy who stood in as a bridesmaid for me. We'd probably still be together today.